Hello, everyone. Welcome back to my channel. I'm Sneha Vishwalingam, and in today's episode, we have with us Jenny Bramble. Jenny is a dynamic speaker and is also a conference organizer. So, in today's episode, we are going to go a little bit to the backstage and talk to the conference organizer herself and get some tips on how to apply for conferences for people who are interested in speaking at tech conferences. So, a little bit about Jenny. Jenny actually started her career from tech support and DevOps and gradually moved into testing. And Jenny loves to help people. And I've personally see her mentor so many people and is just an amazing personality with a lot of lively vibes. So, I am so excited to present to you Jenny Bramble. Hi, Jenny. Thank you so much for being here. And we are so excited to hear more about you and about your speaking experience and all the tips that you can give to our newbie speakers who would love to start their journey as tech conference speakers. So, welcome to this channel. And how are you doing today?
Doing really great. It's actually kind of a gray, drizzly day down here in North Carolina. I guess we need the rain, but I can't wait for it to be sunny tomorrow.
I can understand that. In Pittsburgh, it's kind of getting cool now. I don't like it. I think I'm happy that it's not really it's we don't have to go to work because I can just stay home. I don't have to deal with the chillness outside. Cool. So Jenny, we would love to know how your journey as a speaker started, and would you like to tell us something about that?
Oh, absolutely. I've always really been interested in teaching people and helping people learn about different things that I know and learning myself. I don't do really well learning in kind of a coursework way. I learn in a doing way.
Mm-hmm.
So by starting to present to other people, I can reinforce my knowledge of topics. Now, the reason I got started conference speaking is actually because I had a company that didn't have any budget for education.
Okay.
So it had no professional development budget. There was no way to get anybody to a conference. And I really wanted to go to a conference. So I started preparing talks and submitting them so that I could actually get out there and help myself learn more about software testing and really show the value of conference speaking and going to conferences. My first conference talk was the first one I got accepted for was Ministry of Test in Philadelphia.
Mm-hmm.
That was really great. The first one I actually did was a local conference just because the conference happened to happen like a month before Test Bash. So my first talk was about risk-based testing.
Mm-hmm.
It was really fun, really well received, and I realized this is something that I want to do. I want to be involved in the community, and I really just, it struck me so hard that this is how you give back to your community. Like, you can contribute to open source projects, you can write blog posts, you can do all these things to kind of engage with the community, give back to the community. And the way that I wanted to give back is by speaking and by helping other people become speakers.
Thank you so much, Jenny. I've personally experienced how good of a mentor you are because I remember I was speaking at SourceCon and you were out there cheering for me and tweeting about my talks, and I've seen you doing that for like so many people. So I know how wonderful of a mentor you are and how much you love giving back to the community. And actually, fun fact is that's how even I started speaking because my company did not have a budget, so I kind of applied to be a speaker, so everything was covered, and that's just how it all started. And once you start to find the benefits of it. Like you learn so much, and then you get to meet a lot of wonderful people. In fact, that's how I got to meet you. And that's how you network with people and build your community and give back to the community. So yeah, that's I think that's a good entryway into conference speaking, and I've seen a lot of people doing that that's been the segue towards the conference speaking experience. So Jenny, what do you feel something that What's something that you gain personally out of speaking, like
You know,
in your
I
professional
really like
life or in your
attention.
personal life?
Honestly, I really like attention. I like it when people are paying attention to me, and when I'm seen as a subject matter expert. That just feels really good, and I really like that. Uh, so I guess it's a little bit narcissistic, but I'm kind of okay with it. The other thing I get is trying to think how to describe this. There is more knowledge and more experience out in the world because I've shared mine. Like if I hadn't given some of the talks I've given, the experiences that I've had would always be internal to me.
Mm-hmm.
They would always be something that just I know and maybe a couple of my friends know. But by standing up on stage and saying, here's an experience I've had, now everybody who watches that talk or comes to that talk or talks to me later can share in the knowledge that I gained by having that experience. And I feel like I can also be a little bit of a role model for people.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
We don't have as many women speakers as I would like. We definitely don't have a lot of queer women speakers. So being able to get up there and be like, yes, I have dyed hair, I have crazy punk rock boots, I am definitely one of the least normal speakers on the docket. You too are okay not being the normal kid in your group.
That's Thanks for sharing that. So that brings me to the most important point of, like we
Just a
need more
second.
people to.
My Alexa's going off. Give me just a second.
No worries, yeah.
Alexa.
Absolutely important for us to have more perspective, more representation, and we want more people to come in front and share their stories, and and be comfortable sharing their stories. So, what are some tips for some people who would like to talk in tech conferences or just tech conferences in general? Like, what is the first step that they need to take for that?
The first step I think is deciding that you want to do a talk, like deciding that this is something that you want to commit to. They are not a low commitment thing. Someone told me, I've seen a couple of statistics where they'll say it takes 60 to 80 hours to put together a 45-minute talk.
I think it takes more than that.
I think it's more than that as well,
Yeah.
Especially if it's a heavy research talk or you have a lot of graphics. But just to give you an idea of the amount of time you need to invest in getting a talk from the concept stage to the production stage is really important. Because I know right now a lot of us are working from home. A lot of us have other drains on our time that are incredibly valuable for us, but might be at odds with conference speaking.
Mm-hmm.
So if you want to get to it and you've got these things that are kind of pulling on you a little, give yourself more time, like more lead time between the conferences to get your stuff together. So decide you want to do it. That's step one. Step two is figure out a topic. And sometimes step 1 and 2 can happen in different orders, whatever floats your boat. When people ask me, well, I don't know what to talk about. What should I talk about? Tell me my topic. What I like to say is, what can you talk about for about 10 minutes? Is there something, maybe technology related, maybe it's culture related, maybe it could be anything. What is something that you can talk about unprompted for 10 minutes? If I stopped you in the hallway and was like, hey, can you tell me about enums in Swift? Could you talk about enums in Swift for 10 minutes to me without having to look something up on your phone? Okay, great. That is the absolute basis for a talk. You really only need to do a little bit more research to stretch a 10-minute hallway rant into a 30-minute talk. Like, you can absolutely do that. And as you're pulling it out, as you're doing the research, you're going to find more things that interest you. You're going to be able to say, oh, wow, this could be a 45. This could be a 60-minute talk. I can see a workshop here. And that's how you pick your topics. Find something that interests you.
I think that's a great way. I think that's a great point. Because if you can talk about something for 10 minutes, you can definitely stretch it out. About talking about your experiences based on that, and yeah, it absolutely makes sense, and I think that's a great way to pick your topic. Thank you for sharing that.
You're welcome. The other way I like to pick topics is there something you want to learn about? Like, did something just happen in the software world? You were like, whoa, cool, I want to learn about that. That can also be a topic. But yeah, so that's picking topics. And then after that, it gets to the hard part of actually putting the talk together. So, yeah, so that's my advice for kind of getting started topic-wise.
Okay, thank you for that. So it's basically setting up like a goal. Why do you want to do this? Do you even want to do this? I don't think everyone should go and necessarily speak in conferences. If that's not their thing, it's okay. I think everyone should be able to present something to their team and to their colleagues. That is an imperative thing. But conferences is just another thing. If you want to do it, that should really come from within. If you really want to do it, you can do it. It's not an absolute necessary thing. But then if you decide that you want to do it, then these are some things that you can do. So Jenny, you've been a conference organizer as well, right? Um, so what are some things, like I want some insider perspective of, you may be getting like hundreds and hundreds of proposals.
You want my secrets is what you want.
Yes, absolutely. I want to know, what do you see in proposals that get selected for the talk?
Oh man, I have been a conference organizer for TISCA down here in Durham, and I've also done paper reviews for Agile Testing Days USA and Agile Testing Days Germany.
Mm-hmm.
We get so many papers. Like, even a small conference like TISCA, it's very regional. I think we got 200 or 300 people submitting for workshop slots, for session talks, for other things. And the first thing I'm going to say is make it easy on the organizers. If you don't have like 3 key takeaways, make 3 key takeaways.
Okay.
Like, if I can have a bulleted list that says someone will probably walk away from this talk knowing these 3 things, that is a really quick way as a conference organizer to be able to say, okay, this person has a logical thought process and they're easily showing me what I can provide to my participants.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing I will say, and this is a weird one and something I struggle with personally as well, don't be too vague.
Okay.
If your talk is about tips and tricks, and at some point you say, you're going to learn tips and tricks, that's fine, but that's not going to help me as a conference organizer decide if you know what you're talking about, and if what you're talking about is something unique and valuable to my participants.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're going to say tips and tricks, say tips and tricks like how to do XYZ, or when you should do these 3 things.
Okay.
That kind of stuff helps show that you are an expert.
Okay.
You know what you're talking about, and it gives the conference organizer an idea of what's going on.
Okay.
You don't have to tell everything.
Yes. So don't be too ambiguous. Try to tell us what exactly you're going to be talking about. Okay.
Yeah. And if you've ever had a conference proposal reviewed by me, it probably has that comment in there somewhere. Because remember, whatever topic you're giving a talk on, there could be 4 other people who also have submitted that talk or something similar.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't have to be the exact same talk, but there could be 5 talks that are in a similar vein, and we can only pick one of them. Because again, small conferences, we want to have a diversity. What makes you special? How do I know that you know what you're talking about? How do I know that you can tell everyone else what you're talking about?
Okay. So I've seen sometimes, Jenny, that, when people write the proposal, some people write the proposal in a very attractive storytelling kind of way that kind of grabs the attention of the proposal reviewer quickly. And some people kind of write it in a very technical way. I wouldn't say either one of them, I wouldn't say any of them are wrong in any way, because, they know their thing. It's just the way they're presenting it. So what are some tips that you'd like to give to people when they frame the proposal to make it more attractive for the person? Yes, key takeaways is definitely a thing. You want them to tell you exactly what the audience is going to take away with them. But what are some other tips to really make it attractive to the person? Because I've also seen conference proposals, and some talks really, I'm like, this is just going to be there. There's no doubt this talk is going to be gone, because we want the audience to feel, it needs to be a lively talk. At the same time, there needs to be some content in that talk. So those are some very good things that we look for. So from your point of view, what are some things that people can do to make their proposal stand out?
Humans love stories. We are incredibly story driven as a race and as a culture. I know we don't often think of like our software technical problems as stories, but if you think about it, every single application is a story, or it's a world that a story can happen in. So what I recommend whenever people are preparing a proposal is to do it in 3 sections. Your first section is, what's your problem? What's your story? Why do I care about your talk? What problem of mine is it going to solve? How can I see myself and my problems in what you're going to present? So if you look at one of my risk-based testing talks, it starts out with, have you ever been in a situation where you're asked to test everything and you don't have time? What are you going to do? Are you going to quit your job? Are you going to try and do it anyway? And that's kind of the problem statement. That's the, do you see yourself in my talk?
Mm-hmm.
After that, I want to say, well, here's my solution to your problem. So for risk-based testing, I say, have you been asked to test everything? Did you hate that? Because I hate that. Then in the rest of the thing, I say something like, risk-based testing helps you determine where the highest value items are to put your time. You can use risk-based testing to figure out when to test, what to test, and if you want to argue for more resources, it's a great way to do it. So that's my second piece. And my last piece is, why am I a good person to talk about this?
Okay.
So I will say something like, Jenny Bramble will lead you through the basics of risk-based testing, focusing on impact and probability before leading you through a risk matrix to show you how you can apply this to your own job.
Mm-hmm.
So that last bit is me telling you why I'm a good person to be giving this talk. And by having those 3 pieces, as a conference organizer, I can read through and I can say, I very quickly identify that the participants that I'm targeting for this conference have these kinds of problems.
Mm-hmm.
And you're telling me that you can give them a solution to these kinds of problems. That's incredibly attractive for me because it makes my job easy. I don't have to read through your talk and figure out, okay, what kind of people are going to come to this talk? What kind of people would be interested in sitting here for 45 minutes and listening to you talk about this?
Mm-hmm.
So I've described it. I said, here's a problem. If you've got this problem, I'll solve it.
That makes sense. Thank you so much for that. I think that's a great format to really start framing our talk, to make it easier for the conference organizer to understand exactly what they're getting out of this talk and exactly who the target audience is. And sometimes people think that they are in the beginning stage of their career. What do they even have to speak at conferences? But I feel like no matter where you are, there's always something that you can talk about, because conferences are attended by beginners, intermediate, managers, and experts. Everyone attends conferences, and every track is kind of named beginner or intermediate or expert level. So people choose what they want to go to. So there's never such thing that you're too beginner level to speak at a conference. I think everyone's welcome in conferences.
I agree with that completely. And I think that people who are very early in their careers have a lot of really great perspectives that the rest of us don't have as much access to, especially people transitioning from other careers. Like, I've heard talks from people that bring all new lights into software testing because of the things that they've done. Like, Angela Riggs talks about her teaching career and how that helps her be a better tester and manager. Ash Coleman talks about when she was a chef and how that helps her be a better tester and why she likes API testing so much. These things color our perspectives and bring new things into the software industry that we desperately, desperately need.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah. So the next question is, Jenny. So a lot of people keep applying for a number of conferences, and when they get rejected, what is your advice? Like, what should they do next?
So my advice is going to be submit to Agile Testing Days and submit to Testing Bash, Test Bash, because both of these conferences actually give you feedback on your proposals. Ministry of Test will do it if you ask, and then Agile Testing Days, you'll get anywhere from a couple of sentences to a couple of paragraphs, depending on who's doing the reviews.
Okay.
And that can be really, really useful for you to figure out what about this proposal is not sparking joy.
Okay.
Like, is it a topic that's too common? Is it a topic that I'm not presenting myself well enough on?
Okay.
Like, do I have the knowledge, but you don't understand that I have the knowledge? Is it poorly organized? Is it can I not pick a story out of it? Can I not tell who this talk is for? If you've submitted to Agile Testing Days and you've gotten like 4 or 5 paragraphs back, that was for me. You're welcome. That's sort of a thing I do.
Thank you for that. That's so nice of you. Thank you for that.
Because one of the things is, I think every talk is worthwhile. Sometimes you just have to massage them a little bit and get them into a format that conference organizers can take on. And also, sometimes your topic's just too common. If we have 4 or 5 people that submit talks on Cypress and they are all slightly different, we can't accept 4 Cypress talks. We can accept 1 Cypress talk. So think about, am I doing something that I've seen in a couple of places before? If I am I doing something unique with it? The other thing is, make sure you're submitting the right talks to the right conferences. If you look at a conference like Star West or Star East, those are a lot more academic. So they are looking for the more crunchy talks, the less soft talks. So they want you to be able to really have something technical and juicy that people can take away from this.
Okay.
And then if you look at Test Bash, they tend to go for a lot of the really technical talks, but they also look for culture talks.
Okay.
Agile Testing Days love soft skill talks. I mean, you have to have a balance, obviously, but these are places that you can get those in. Refactor down in Georgia does a lot of soft skills talks. Artifacts love this conference. It's all about mental health and tech. So it's all culture talks, all kind of the soft skills, experience-based things. So if you're doing an experience-based talk that's about your emotions, about your feelings, about things like that, make sure you're putting that in the right place. And if you're doing something very technical, like, let me walk you through exactly step-by-step how to do this thing, make sure you're applying to the right conferences with it.
That's great information, Jenny. I've never heard of that before. I think it's a great perspective. And where do you think people can find information like that about different conferences? And is there something like that already out there? Has someone blogged about it or something like that?
They haven't really.
Okay.
It's just kind of a feeling you get when you look at enough conferences. What I would say is, look at the last year's conference.
Okay.
What kind of talks did they accept last year? And if you look at Ministry of Test, you're going to see things like testing charters as treasure maps and let's go exploratory testing on the mountain. Like, these kinds of fun, interesting, goofy titles. And if that's what you feel like you talk with, then that's where you want to go.
Okay.
If you look at TechWell, it's going to be things like risk-based testing, how to do mind maps, let's talk about the newest features in Java, those kinds of more procedural technical talks. If that's what you're doing, that could be a really great place to submit.
Okay.
The other thing I would say is, grab yourself a mentor. Find someone in the conference speaking community already who can give you advice on where to put your talk.
that brings me to the next question on, what do you think is the best place for people to find mentors if they want to start speaking? I've heard of Tech Voices. Speakeasy was, renamed as Tech Voices, and I think that's a great place to start. But do you have any guidance for people to go reach out to for mentorship on speaking?
So definitely Tech Voices.
Okay.
Primarily, they're focused on minorities and women and non-binary humans. So if you're one of those people and you really want to get started, Tech Voices can be a really great place to get advice. The other thing I would say is Twitter is amazing. I know not everybody loves Twitter. You've got to get on the Twitters. It's going to be fine. But you can generally say, hey, I'm trying to get into X conference and I would like to do that. Can anybody review my proposal? And sometimes you'll get a response. Mm-hmm. Like you'll actually have somebody be like, oh yeah, I'll totally look at it. You can message me. I don't have a ton of time because everything.
I know. You have a lot going on.
I'm generally happy to at least review a couple of proposals or point you in the direction of someone else that can review it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and if you're looking for conferences to submit to and you've got like a topic or an idea, I can generally tell you which style of conferences you're going to have the easiest time with and point you towards a couple of them.
Okay. That's nice. Cool. Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
These are amazing information, Jenny. I think this is gold. But so the next question is, okay, find someone, applies for conferences, they actually get into the conference. What next? How do they start preparing? And I think everything starts at that point. I remember, especially for me, I felt like, why did I send my proposal? Why did I get selected? Because I think everything started after that. So how do people, what's your advice on how they deal with that situation and how they get started?
First, have yourself a little party. Remember that when people are submitting to conferences, you can have hundreds of people submit. And 10 to 50 get in. It is not a high number of people that are actually accepted into a conference. So take a step back and absolutely celebrate the fact that you have gotten chosen. Then you got to figure out what you're talking about. Depending on how you create abstracts, you may already have an outline for your talk. You may already have an idea for what you want to do, but you really need to firm it up. Make sure you've got all of the information you need and start putting together a slide deck. Now, personally, I love mind maps. Actually just gave an entire workshop on mind maps because I love them so much. Start with your central thought. You have nodes spiraling off of it with all of your other thoughts. And for me, that's a really great way to get my thoughts in order for putting a presentation together. So when I was doing my automation engineers from scratch, I put how to be an automation engineer in the middle, and then started drawing nodes off of it, talking about things like, I don't think I can do this. I don't want to be an automation engineer. I don't know the tools. I don't know the languages. I don't know, all of the things that kind of bubbled up when I first started working as a test automation engineer, and figuring out what of that could go in the talk successfully. So I love a mind map. Some people like outlines. I have one friend that just goes directly into PowerPoint and starts making slides. I'm like, what? How do you do that? So you want to kind of get an idea of what you're going to talk about, and then I start roughing out slides.
Okay.
I don't try and make them pretty at first. They just have a little bit of text on them. So I'll put some text. I'll be like, this is the text I think I want on the slide, and here's a little blurb in the speaker notes about what I'm going to say. I don't use a ton of speaker notes.
Okay.
Except when I'm first putting a talk together.
Got it.
But the more I do a talk, the less notes I have. So, because they change really well, and I like to be able to change with the times. So put that in, and once you've got an idea of how your slides are going to flow, start thinking about the media you're using.
Okay.
What are your slides going to look like? Pick a color thing. Pick a style. Are you going to have a bunch of pictures? Are you going to have any video? Are you going to have any GIFs? Like any of these things, start putting that in and massaging it. And then you have to start giving the talk. Like, I don't care if you set up 14 stuffed animals in a room and start talking to them, but you need to give your talk. If you are a new speaker, I'm going to recommend you give your talk to someone at least 5 times before the day of the event.
Mm-hmm.
The first time you're going to mess it up royally. It's going to be hilarious. Let that happen. The second time you're going to realize you've forgotten 3 or 4 points you want to talk about, so you have to redo your slides.
Mm-hmm.
The third time is where you really start to see the talk that you want to give coming out. That's when you really start feeling, oh my gosh, I can do it. And then the fourth and the fifth time are just practice, practice, practice. So whenever you actually get up there, you've done it enough times that should something go wrong,
Mm-hmm.
you can recover because you know your material, you know what you want to say, you know where you want to go.
Mm-hmm. That's great advice.
And let everybody know that you're talking. Like, let your company know, let your friends know, let your professional organizations know, let your mom know, let your dad know. Just let everybody know, because it is a big deal. It is a big deal for essentially the software community to recognize.
I think you've been giving like amazing information, and I think it's going to be very useful for people. Do you have anything else that you'd like to say on this topic?
Everyone has a story. Even if you feel like you have done nothing special, nothing interesting, you have a story to tell. There is something about your perspective, your experience, the things that you've done, the things you've seen, the things you've helped with, the things you've learned, that is important for the rest of the world to know. Especially if you don't look like everyone else, you don't act like everyone else, you don't think like everyone else, you didn't come from the same place everyone else did. By seeing people's different experiences, by hearing the way they think up on stage, we can enrich the entire software industry and create people that are better prepared for the future. Like, this is how we succeed in the future, by taking all of these crazy different perspectives and starting to popularize them and starting to say, yeah, this is how people actually think and move through the world. Your view is important. Your experience is important.
Absolutely, I agree with that 100%. Thank you for saying that, Jenny. It was lovely having you today, and I think you've dropped such amazing information for all of us here. Thank you so much again for graciously accepting for this interview and giving your time. Thank you so much.
Thank you too. This was.
Hey, if you liked this video so far, please make sure you give it a thumbs up and share with your friends. And if you like the content of this channel, then please make sure you subscribe. Thank you.